What are you doing? Elijah had his reasons for running off. He was afraid and ran for his life. That was in 1 Kings 19:3, right? He went toe-to-toe with 450 Baal's prophets in a competition called Call on Your Lord. From morning to midday, they called on the name of their God, dancing around the altar they had made, shouting, slashing themselves, prophesying, until it was time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response, no one answered, no one paid attention. 1 Kings 18:29. Then Elijah went forth, just one person standing before them all. But he wasn't alone. God was there with him in spirit and responded immediately after his prayer with an all-consuming fire. Read it about it yourself in 1 Kings 18. But even after that that pretty amazing, imagine if you were there, that even after that dramatic demonstration and affirmation of God's presence to everyone and to Elijah, right? Elijah still ran for his life. He feared the consequences of their leader, Jezebel, who heard about what happened and vowed to kill him. What are you doing? I think the question of what are you doing was spoken by God to Elijah with love. God understands that Elijah is but human. He had human needs, human responses. So God fed him and let him sleep. Then God fed him again until he was able to get up, strengthened to travel for 40 days and 40 nights. How specific the timing of that travel? Elijah was alone for enough time to be able to meet with God and to recognize God later on the mountain. And that was the text that we first read. What are you doing here? Elijah explains what happened and how he felt to God, right? He said he felt abandoned. He felt alone. Like he was the only faithful Israelite left. And now, even though he did right by God, he was being hunted to be killed. God listens and God responds to Elijah to go and stand on the mountain, to wait for himself, the Lord, to pass by. And Elijah is faithful. Elijah waits. He stood through the wind that tore apart the mountains and the rocks. Now, we don't know how he stood, because, I've never been around on the top of a mountain where, that is happening. But he stood there. Maybe he stood there afraid and full of fear. We don't know. But either way, he stood there. He was there. He stood through the earthquake. He stood through the fire. And then Scripture says Elijah heard a gentle whisper. And at that point, Elijah knew to move. He went to go and stand at the mouth of the cave. And then God asked him again, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Have you been so frantically busy in your life doing the work of God, doing the work of school, relationship work, family work, self-work, volunteer work, ministry work, and just felt like it was just so much? Anybody? What are you doing here? Just like with Elijah, God knows you are but human. God knows your emotions. God knows what we need. So I've been talking about my work lately, if y'all remember, right? I transitioned to a new job, and so my work life has been an unending more. We want more. I think this is kind of the way it is in our busy Western culture, right? I thought that I would figure this out. But what I'm realizing is I cannot look to this culture that we are in to teach me this practice of slowing down and relying on God. It's just not working. It's not working. And as you know that if I'm gonna say something, so I also know that I can't even depend on the church to teach me this practice of slowing down and depending on God. You know why? Because over all these years, church has been showing me activity after activity after activity, things that we need to do. Like my calendar was full with serving all these years as a lay leader and now on staff and even as a church participant, right? I went from thing to thing at the church. So maybe we seem to, as a church, as a whole, right? Maybe we've gotten it into that same rhythm of busyness. So I'm just saying, I am realizing that the old ways of operating just isn't working anymore in my new context and these even busier times. It just gets busier and busier. It's just not working anymore, and something has to change. So as a whole, I am not sure that we as people and even we as Christians, we as followers of Christ, I don't think we do a good job trusting that living God's ways is enough. So maybe I should speak for myself here. This might not be you and just me. I have realized that I operate like I don't need God. Even though I say I do, and even though I sing about needing God, and even though I preach about needing God, and I tell others, mentor, advice, counsel, supervision, like I direct others, reminding them that our source is God. And even in all of that, I know this is knowledge I know. But when I look at my actual life, I operate like it's my own actions that make it all work out. How did I come to realize this? I just realized this recently when I was honest enough to examine my life and admit that something's not right. How did I realize this? Silence. Spending time away in silence, in nature, helped me to make things clear. So picture a snow globe, right? Shaken up by life. The snow is everywhere, and you can't see clearly within the globe, right? Because it's all over the place. In the globe, the snow globe, it looks real nice. You know, that's the purpose of the snow globe. We want to see the snow all over the place. But in our life, with all kinds of things swirling around in our head and in our heart and in our life, like all of that swirling around, we are affected by the reality of that. Like we can't see clearly. There's too much going on. But if we let that snow globe sit, we just sit it there and wait, in time, the stuff settles down, and then we can clearly see all that's there. So come away by yourself. Caroline Oakes, the author of Practice the Pause, if you like books, wrote that contemplative practices help us to check in to what is here and helps us then to be much more clearer to what is ours to do in our lives. And her website says, practice the pause, right? That's her book is a wake-up call to see how Jesus' own practice, science, and being human indeed do dance together. Come with me to a quiet place. The apostles in Mark 6 were sent out by Jesus, 2 by 2, with the authority over impure spirits, right? They were successful in their efforts, driving out demons, anointing the sick, preaching repentance. They came back to Jesus excited, reporting all they had done and taught. That's in verse 30. How are you after a successful outcome to something big and important? Maybe something you've been working hard at, something you had a lot of hope in. Like, how are you? Well, these disciples, they were full of words, and they wanted to share with Jesus all about it. They wanted to tell him. Jesus' response to them wasn't to hear more words. And Jesus' response to them wasn't to create a strategy on how to do it again. Maybe bigger and better next time, or maybe a different group of people. No, in this context, in Mark 6, Jesus' response was noticing that there was a lot going on. Noticing that these disciples hadn't even had anything to eat yet. And so Jesus says to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. Come with me to a quiet place. The truth is, this is not how I live my life. I don't know how you live your life, but I don't live my life like this. This is not what I do. My practices do not follow after this example of Jesus. But when I see Jesus offering the disciples, right, after they did this big ministry thing, Jesus offers them an opportunity to follow him, his rhythms, his practices, and to not maybe do whatever they felt compelled to do or however they felt like they wanted to respond. Jesus had to show them the way. And if we look at the Gospels, that's what Jesus was doing in his life over and over again. If we have eyes to see it, it is there. There are several instances where Jesus pulls away from the crowds and from others who want his attention to spend time alone with himself and with his source, God. Although Jesus is actually God in the flesh, he often spends time this way by himself, alone. Come with me to a quiet place. Here are some examples, right? Jesus, right after his baptism, driven out into the desert for 40 days by himself, right? That's in Mark 1:12. Jesus got up early while it was still dark, left the house, went off to pray until he was found by Simon, who said, hey, everybody's looking for you. You know, they wanted the healing. They wanted him to do stuff. That's in Mark 1:35-37. And what did Jesus do? Did he attend to the people who were clamoring after him? No. Jesus said, let's go somewhere else so I can preach there also, because that is why I have come. Could it be that his time apart, Jesus, when he went away early in the morning, could it be that that time of being alone helped him to clarify his purpose so that he wasn't confused by all these people's requests? He knew what he was there to do. He was reminded of it in silence. So this happened again and again as people came to hear about what he can do. Jesus withdrew to lonely places for prayer. Luke 5, Mark 1. Before Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount, you might notice that he spent the night praying to God. Luke 6 and Mark 3. In grief, when Jesus heard that John the Baptist was beheaded, right, and killed, he went to be alone, Matthew 14. After feeding the 5,000 and after healing many, and before feeding the 4,000 on a different occasion, Mark 6, Matthew 15, Jesus spent time away by himself. In Gethsemane, before he was arrested, and would begin his painful journey to the cross, what did he do? He went away. Mark 14. But also in that case, he invited the disciples to come with him. He tried to show them how to live out this rhythm of getting away from the crowd, getting away from others, and just spending time in quiet with God. Right? Jesus also, in the transfiguration, Jesus went up on a high mountain with Peter, James, and John. So they weren't alone completely, but they were in an intimate group together, away from others. That's in Matthew 17, Mark 9, Luke 9. Jesus led off the disciples to be together more intimately after teaching the crowds in Mark 4. Jesus gave the disciples access to come to him privately with their questions in Mark 7. So Jesus could be alone and found renewal in that. But Jesus models to the disciples how to be alone together. How to do this together. I think Jesus was showing us the importance of doing these things over and over again. He didn't say do these things, but if you look at his life, that's what he was doing over and over again. He had a rhythm of going away to the quiet, and he invited the disciples to do the same. I think we are invited as well. Come with me to a quiet place. See my life and follow after me. What are you doing? What are you doing? Come with me to a quiet place. This is the way. Follow me. So, I shared with you what I recently realized in my time of silence, but let me also share that it was hard for me to get away from work to do it. When I was away at this time of quiet, which was in Austin, so I had to drive over an hour and a half to get there. So as I was driving there, I met with a spiritual director while I was there. And a spiritual director is like a guide, a spiritual guide to help a person meet with God, the true director of our lives. So in that time, I said to this person, I feel like I'm fighting for my spiritual life. Like, I feel like when I was driving here, I told her I felt like I was fighting for my life to be here. And she wanted to know more about what does fighting for your spiritual life mean? And I shared with her that I literally felt like in this job that I have, that I was drowning at times. Like maybe you have felt that way with your work or your school obligations, or if you're in a particular transition or in a new role. Maybe you felt that way. Maybe you know what I mean. I've not felt this way before. So I felt like, I don't feel this way now, but I did feel like I was on a sinking ship, like holding the bag of responsibility in my hands with this role. But after time, and with the help of faith-filled friends, meeting in community and prayer, when I shared eventually about how I truly felt and what was going on, and they held me up in prayer and reminded me of the call, I realized over time, this wasn't quick, I realized that I was flailing about, but I wasn't alone. I had help all around me, but I never reached out for it or acknowledged it at first. I had more help than just my friend community. There was other supports, but I didn't even see them at first. But eventually I did reach out, and things got a little better. But here I am again, I'm back again. You'd think you do something once and that'd be good. You don't have to keep redoing it. But here I am again, compelled to be there at that silent retreat, even at this time, right in the middle of some serious new, different transitions at my job. And I was fearful that I would be called out for taking this time for me and for my work, because right now I work from home. So I thought someone would know that I am not at my desk. I was afraid that I would not get the work I needed done. I usually ask for permission first to do things like this. I usually accommodate others' needs and requests over and over again, putting what I need last, but not on that day. I needed to get away by myself for quiet. I had to do it. I had to do something different. One day, you will be here in this place, perhaps. And I hope you remember you can make a different choice. And I did. And it was scary. But I still did it. But it was at that time, at that retreat, and it took all day, because it was an all-day thing. It took all day. It wasn't until the end of the day that I realized and admitted out loud, I do not want to have to go to God about the things that I need. Can you believe that? Yeah. I mean, maybe you know that for yourself. I don't know. I didn't admit it to me until then. It was like, I don't actually want to go to God with my needs. I want to take care of it myself. That was my work before, like in the army. It's like, pull yourself up, do the thing yourself. That's how I was raised. And now I'm fighting against this in my work and in my life. This is a shift. I didn't want to have to need quiet. I didn't want to have to make boundaries on my time. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do because, I think I can do it. And if I put the effort in, I can do it. And usually it works out. Basically, I want to just operate as if I can do everything and anything myself. And so I do. And that's when I realized, wait a minute. Something's not right here. So, anybody floss? Oh, okay, good for you. Every dentist I've been to asks us, when we go to our cleaning appointment, they ask the same things. How often do you brush? Do you floss? And I say, I don't floss. I mean, I don't need to lie. Like, I tell the truth. I don't floss. I rarely floss. Only when there's something stuck in there do I floss, but no, I don't floss. And so they give me their disapproving look. And then they look in my mouth and they say, oh, your teeth is pretty good. And I'm like, I know, so it's kind of like, well, maybe I don't need to floss, right? So I don't do it. The things that I should do, I don't do, and I get away with it. So that's what I was doing. That's what I am doing. But my family member who also went with us to our latest dentist appointment, she didn't get the same thing, though, right? So when she says, I don't really floss, they look in her mouth and they're like, ooh, you have two new cavities. Like, we was just here, 2 new cavities. And I was wondering, like, why? What's the difference here? I don't need to floss. But for that person, they do. You know why? Because their lifestyle is different. They snack all day long, all day, all night. So that stuff just stays in the mouth. And so the dentist says the best environment for the bad stuff is happening in the mouth. And so you need to get that out of there. And they don't. And that's why they have the results they have. So, basically what I'm saying with that is that, we don't all need the same recipe of what to do. Maybe I can get away with not flossing, but somebody else, they need to do that because they just do. So I might have gotten away for this long and been this successful without having to figure out the rhythms of how to, keep going back to God. Like, I have managed so far without having to do that. But it's not working anymore. It's not. I have to make a change. This rhythm of pulling away regularly to continue to survive for me and for my work is crucial. That's what I'm realizing. I need this better rhythm of practice. I need to follow after the way that Christ has modeled. That's what I wanted to offer to you all today. Maybe you figured this out already. Or maybe you're like me and like, I haven't needed it before, so, there is a way that Jesus has modeled. And our society does not live that way. But I think we're invited to live the way of Christ, like to go in the ways that God has been. So I want to read something to you from this book, which I do recommend. Like, I recommend books, but I don't actually always recommend books. But this book is called Strengthening the Soul of Your Leadership, Seeking God in the Crucible of Ministry by Ruth Haley Barton. She is sort of a person that's known to help with spiritual formation of leaders. So that's her ministry, her life work. And there's some key things in this book that I thought were pretty helpful in helping me to reflect. So on page 120, 121, it says, when we are depleted, we can become overly reliant on voices outside of ourselves to tell us what is going on. We react to symptoms rather than seeking to understand and respond to underlying causes. We rely on other people's ministry models and outside consultants because we're too tired to listen in our setting and craft something that's uniquely suited to meet the needs that are there for us, right? When we are rested, however, we bring steady, alert attention that is characterized by true discernment about what is truly needed in our situation, and to have the energy and creativity to carry it out. So, one person that has seen some serious fruit from their time with God for themselves and for their ministry is a guy named Gary. Gary was a former senior trial attorney for the U.S. Department of Justice, but founded an organization called International Justice Mission, IJM, in response to injustices he saw among the poor in Africa. And this organization has grown to a global anti-slavery organization that partners with local authorities in 18 countries. So since 1997, they have protected 10,795,165 people, which I got from their website, right? So this is a thriving, successful organization. And the founder and current CEO of this organization, Gary Hagan, wanted to be intentional about the growth that they were experiencing in their work. He saw that this was taking root. They're doing a lot of work, but he wanted to be intentional about how do we go to God though? He felt like this is necessary to do. And he says in an article which is posted on Transforming Center in 2018, he said, I sensed that God desired for IJM to experience more of his presence and his power, but we were not yet ready to receive it. And it goes on to say, as an organization, we had a regular rhythm of praying together every day at 11 a.m., right? They had a practice, and yet all too often our work would veer into prayerless striving rather than expectant abiding. We longed for transformation in ourselves and in the lives of those who we sought to serve. We longed to know more deeply the love of our good Father who leads us in transformation. And yet, we needed a more disciplined attentiveness that would ready us to receive more of God's presence and God's power. We needed to learn to be still, to wait on the Lord, to simply be with him. That's amazing that he knew that coming in, like he knew this was important. So what happened? And this is why I'm bringing it up, because to me, it's inspiring to know. After his own time of pulling away from work as CEO and the leader and founder of this organization, he took the sabbatical, pulled away from work for intentional prayer and time to be with God. In that time, he got an idea for this thing which he implemented later through the blessing of their board of directors called 8:30 stillness. So what is that? He describes it. He says, now imagine with me for a moment a staff of high-performing lawyers, criminal investigators, social workers, and professionals in Washington, D.C. and offices across the developing world rushing to the office to begin their day, faced with the task of fighting slavery, human trafficking, police abuse, and other forms of violent oppression. As these staff arrive at their desks, their first order of business is to stop. All phones are off. Laptops are closed. No email, no meetings, just silence, solitude, and stillness for 30 minutes. The whole organization. I don't know about you, but I want that. I need that in my life. I want to help my people to have that too. I want to have built-in practices that support my ultimate goal, that I would be firmly rooted in and connected to God, that everything that I do and all that I am comes from that, not from my efforting or my striving or my, having to do it all. Like, it's not in me, it's in the Lord. That's what I want, and that's what I haven't been doing that. I need a restructuring. This is the way of Jesus. The way of Jesus is to be able to function in a world that's constantly wanting something from you. They will always want something from you. But Jesus functioned in that world by pulling away. So what are you doing? Come with me to a quiet place. So the last thought, and I know I'm a little long, but this is the last thought. I took a photo, and it's from that silent retreat that I was at the other day. Yeah. We had an optional time of community sharing during our last 30 minutes together because we weren't talking, except for the last 30 minutes if you wanted to. And at that time, we were invited to simply lift up and voice what came to you from God in your time of silence on that day, to share that with one another. And one person shared her story briefly, and then she shared that she felt an invitation to be like bamboo. Bamboo stands tall and is strong and flexible. Bamboo also doesn't grow alone. It grows together and grows, right? And then she made this out of clay, and she showed it to us. So I asked her to take a picture. I wanted to remember that because for me, I'm not saying this is for you, but for me, my way forward is I have to do this together with others. I've been doing so much on my own, I know how to do that. And it's in this case, it's not working. I have to do this together, maybe like the bamboo. I had to find, I just need this, that's for me. I don't know what it is for you. What do you need? What do you sense God is inviting you to? What are you doing? Come with me to a quiet place. And now let me pray. May the God who called Moses up the mountain, who met Elijah in the whisper, and who drew Jesus into quiet places, grant you the courage to step away. May you notice the signals of your own soul. May you see the patterns that lead you toward life and take the brave action of choosing rest. May solitude become not an escape, but a meeting place where the Father restores you, the Son walks with you, and the Spirit breathes peace into you. Go now in that courage and in that rest. Amen.